Hello, my name is Kiara. Okay, so when I tell people that my parents were split up and that I live in a single parent household, people like to make the assumption that, oh, I bet it's difficult for your mother to raise you all on your own. And that's where I have to tell people, no, you're wrong. It was actually my father who raised me. And people are like, oh, wow, that's so weird and so different. But on a report made by Gretchen Livingston called The Rise of Single Fathers, she says that there is roughly 2.6 billion single father households in America, while there is still by about 8.6 million single mother households. While it is still uncommon, but not as uncommon as people like to think. I mean, single fathers still can raise children on their own. I mean, it's not as common as single mothers raising children, but I mean, it still can happen, and I'm one of those cases. So, I would like to inform my audience a little bit about my experiences of what it was like being raised by a single father, as well as using outside resources to further explain my reasoning. I am establishing my credibility by providing examples of my own experiences, as well as using outside research on my topic to help it with my credibility as well. Alright, so my first main point that I would like to introduce is growing up in a single parent household, there can be some good times as well as some bad times, and that's why communication is very important. So going along with the good times is good times, like it can bring the family really close together and causing a lot of good communication. So like, once again, when I was younger, I played soccer growing up, and my dad played soccer when he was growing up, so that was a really good connection that we made, and a lot of good communication and memories came from it. So some bad times would be like kind of where the communication wasn't really fully expressed, and we weren't really talking about like what we really wanted to talk about. So I can also use soccer as well, because sometimes when I got older, soccer became more important for me, and he expected a lot more from me. So if I didn't play as well as I hoped, I would have that constant fear that I might get yelled at, and that the communication wasn't there, that I couldn't really communicate because I was nervous to talk to him after the game if I didn't play well. But moving along with that idea is my second point that I like to bring up, is a parent having to play two roles. So for me, would be my dad having to play both the father role and the mother role. On a blog post made by Uva Shava called Single Parenting Challenges and Obstacles, she brings up the idea that parents having to play two roles and the challenges attached to that idea. And I couldn't agree more. So an example I like to bring up is when I was having a bad day from school and I wanted to come home, and I wanted that person to rant to and talk to and ask for advice about how I was feeling, or just having that person to cry on that shoulder. You would usually have a mother figure talk to you, or like you would talk to that mother figure, but I didn't have that option, so I'd have to have my dad be like, hey dad, can you listen to all my problems? Just expressing like how much I wanted that love and affection that I usually would get from a mother, but I had to get that from my father, which it was difficult for him, but he did try his hardest, which I really appreciated. Alright, so another way that my dad tried his hardest but still came across as difficult for him was being overprotective. So that's my third point, the sense of my dad being overly overprotective, which I understand could put a lot of stress on a dad because he's raising two daughters on his own, which can be really difficult and putting a lot of stress on him. But he needed to know that the point of being overprotective but not too overly protective, because it kind of gave the sense to me that he didn't really necessarily trust like me, or like that I was kind of being smothered by him. So an example I like to bring up is Life 360, which is the app that came out for families that you can track each other. Well, I'm in college now, and he still uses the app on me, and if I like go out somewhere and he's like, oh, where are you going? And I didn't tell him, because he can see on Life 360 that I'm moving, and I get like immediately text like, hey, like where are you at? Like, hey, tell me where you're at, like tell me where you're going, tell me who are you meeting, like blah blah blah. And if I didn't tell him, then he would get really mad at me. So on an article made by Pamela Lee called The Causes and Signs and Effects of Overly Protective Parents, some of the effects that she stated can fall under some of the ways that I was feeling as well. The constant fear of being worried and anxiety because of the constant overprotecting from my father, thinking that something bad was going to happen, like he was thinking that something bad was going to happen, and then it made me think that something bad was going to happen, so giving me a lot of anxiety from that. In conclusion, hopefully you got to listen about some of my experiences of what it was like being raised by a single father, and I wouldn't change anything for the world, because I love being raised by my father. Me and my has such a strong connection now because I was just raised by him. So, and it shaped me to the person that I am today. Thank you for listening.